Businessman David Morgan, wealthy, successful, and always in a hurry, was headed to San Francisco on a first-class ticket, dressed in a crisp tailored suit, expensive leather shoes, and juggling two phones. David moved to the airport like a man on a mission. His assistant had emailed his schedule 3 times. His meeting on the West Coast was critical. Every minute mattered. He arrived at the gate early, coffee in hand, barely looking up from his phone. But then something caught his eye. Near the check-in counter, hunched on a bench, sat an elderly woman. Her gray coat looked worn. Her hands, trembling slightly, clutched a cane and a printed boarding pass. Her eyes scanned the crowd nervously as passengers lined up for boarding. No one looked at her. No one offered help. She seemed completely invisible. Something inside David paused. He watched as she struggled to stand, wobbling slightly. She approached the counter, voice barely audible, asking something the agent didn't quite catch. David stepped forward. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" he asked softly. She smiled, surprised by the kindness. "I'm just trying to board early. It's hard for me to walk far, and my legs get stiff." The agent looked over her economy class ticket and sighed. "Sorry, ma'am, we board by group." David interrupted. "Excuse me," he said to the agent. "Switch her with me. I'll take her seat." The agent blinked. "Sir, are you sure? You're in first class." David nodded. "Yes. Please don't tell her I did." The woman looked confused as the gate agent printed her a new boarding pass and gently led her toward the priority lane. Meanwhile, David quietly slipped his phone into his coat pocket and walked toward the back of the plane, toward seat 34B, right next to the bathroom, where the seat didn't even recline. He didn't look back. He didn't want credit. He just felt peace. In a world that moved too fast, where kindness often got lost in noise and deadlines, David chose to pause. And that simple act, giving up his seat, was about to change his life in a way he never expected. When the elderly woman, whose name was Margaret, was gently escorted toward the front of the plane, she looked around in confusion. "I think there's been a mistake," she whispered to the flight attendant, clutching her original economy boarding pass. The attendant smiled warmly. "No mistake, ma'am. This seat is yours now. Please, make yourself comfortable." Margaret stared at the wide leather seat in disbelief. She lowered herself into it slowly, her hands brushing the smooth armrest like she was touching something sacred. A glass of water appeared within seconds. A pillow, a blanket. Everything felt unreal. She hadn't flown in over 30 years. And never, in first class. The last time she'd been on a plane, it was with her late husband. Back then, they were young and broke, sitting in the cheapest seats at the back, holding hands, dreaming of someday. She blinked back tears. Somehow, today, someone had seen her. Someone had given up their comfort, without asking for thanks, without seeking attention. She didn't even know who he was. Meanwhile, back in row 34, David folded himself into the cramped middle seat near the bathroom. The man to his left was already asleep with his mouth open. The woman on the right had taken the armrest and was balancing a large tote bag in her lap. A crying baby 2 rows ahead let out sharp, rhythmic screams. David smiled. It was noisy, tight, far from luxury. But his heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. No cameras, no social media, no audience, just one quiet choice. Kindness, he thought, isn't about being seen. It's about doing what's right when no one's watching. He opened a book, ignored the turbulence, and let the peace of his decision settle around him. Somewhere up front, a woman who hadn't felt truly noticed in years was sipping orange juice, watching clouds pass by through a big window, and whispering prayers for the stranger who gave her such a beautiful gift. Neither of them knew it yet, but this small act of kindness was only the beginning of something much bigger, something neither of them could have imagined. Midway through the flight, as David tried to get some rest in his cramped seat, a flight attendant leaned down and tapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Mr. Morgan?" He blinked, surprised. "Yes." "There's a lady in first class who insists on speaking with you," she said with a small smile. "She's very determined." David let out a soft laugh, unbuckled his seatbelt, and stood. As he made his way down the aisle toward first class, Passengers looked up curiously. Some recognized him. He had that kind of presence. But he wasn't thinking about attention or appearances. He just wanted to make sure the lady was okay. He reached first class and saw her, Margaret, sitting upright, hands folded neatly in her lap like she was back in church. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. "You're the man, aren't you?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. David gave a small nod. "I just wanted you to be comfortable." Tears filled Margaret's eyes. She clasped her hands tighter. "I just wanted to thank you. You don't know what this meant to me. No one's done something like this for me in decades." David looked down, unsure what to say. "You're very welcome, ma'am. Really, it was nothing." But Margaret shook her head. No, it was everything. She reached into her small, worn purse and pulled out an old, faded envelope. Her hands trembled slightly as she extended it toward him. "Please take this," she said. David hesitated, confused. "Ma'am, I really don't need anything. I didn't do it for her." She stopped him with a smile. "It's not money. It's a letter. I've carried it with me for years. I don't know why. I just knew one day I'd meet someone who needed to read it." There was something so genuine in her voice that David couldn't refuse. He took the envelope gently and nodded. "All right, I'll read it." Margaret smiled, eyes shining. "When you land, not before." David returned to his seat, the envelope resting on his lap like a mystery. He stared at it for the rest of the flight, wondering what secrets or wisdom it held. Little did he know, this letter was about to change his life. When the flight landed, David collected his bag and stepped outside into the cool evening air. As his car pulled away from the airport, he unfolded the envelope he had kept carefully in his jacket pocket. The handwriting was delicate but strong. He read each word slowly. "Dear stranger, if you're reading this, it means you showed kindness to someone you didn't know. That matters more than you realize. My name is Margaret Taylor. I'm 82 years old. My late husband, Thomas, was a man who believed deeply in paying it forward. Before he passed, we started a foundation to help underprivileged children go to college. But for years, I struggled to find someone I believed truly understood the power of compassion. If you're reading this, I think you might be that person. Enclosed is my lawyer's card. If you're willing, I'd like to speak to you about becoming the next guardian of our mission." David stared at the letter, stunned. His heart beat faster. He hadn't done anything extraordinary. At least, he didn't think he had. But this woman, she saw something in his small act of kindness. Something bigger. A month later, David met Margaret again. This time over tea in a quiet San Francisco cafe. The woman who once looked fragile on a cane was now beaming with warmth and purpose. They spoke for hours. Margaret told him everything about the hundreds of students who had gone to college because of the fund, about her late husband's dream, and about the battle to keep the mission alive after he passed. David listened with a quiet reverence, and by the end of that conversation, he knew he wanted to be part of something more. That week, he agreed to join the foundation's board. He poured his business knowledge, his connections, and, most importantly, his heart into the work. Within a year, the foundation expanded into 3 more states. Dozens of new scholarships were created. Kids who once thought college was out of reach began receiving letters that changed their futures. 2 years later, Margaret passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 84. At her memorial, David stood before a room filled with lives she had touched. She thought, "I changed your day by giving up a seat," he said, voice thick with emotion. But the truth is, she changed my life. A month after their flight, David met Margaret at a quiet little cafe tucked away in the heart of San Francisco. The sun streamed through the window as they sat across from each other, sipping tea. The city bustled outside, but inside, time seemed to slow. What started as polite conversation quickly turned into something deeper. They spoke about everything: life's unpredictability, love that lasts beyond lifetimes, the ache of loss, and the quiet beauty of giving without expecting anything in return. Margaret told him stories about her late husband, Thomas, how they had built their scholarship fund from scratch, how it had helped over 200 students go to college, how they had kept their names off every donation form, because it wasn't about recognition. It was about the kids. David, a man who had spent most of his life in boardrooms and luxury hotels, felt something stir inside him, a warmth, a clarity he hadn't known he was missing. For the first time in years, he felt purpose beyond profit. That very week, David agreed to join the foundation's board of directors. But he didn't just lend his name. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He used his business acumen to restructure the program, brought in partners from across the country, and created mentorship opportunities to pair donors and students. Within just a year, the foundation had expanded into 3 more states, opening doors for dozens of underprivileged youth. One by one, students began to graduate, not just with degrees, but with confidence, dignity, and dreams made possible by the kindness of strangers. Margaret stayed involved as much as her health allowed, and before she passed away at the age of 84, she saw the foundation flourish in ways she never imagined. At her memorial, the room was filled with faces, students, families, volunteers, and friends. David stood at the front, holding the same letter she had once given him. She thought, "I changed your day by giving up my seat," he said, voice trembling. "But the truth is, she changed my life. And now, together, we've changed hundreds more." And with that, Margaret's quiet mission lived on, through every student, every act of kindness, and every life it touched. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, inspiring stories just like this. Hit the bell icons